Boys and girls, happy Tuesday. So today we're starting on a new type of grammar skill. I know the last couple of days we've been focusing on homophones, which are words that sound the same but have different meanings. And today we're going to learn something new. So let's look at what the instruction says. It says read the passage and find each verb. Okay, what is a verb? Do you remember what a verb is? So a verb, okay, is usually the action word of the sentence, okay? Think about some actions that you do every day. Eat, talk, draw, jump, work, exercise. These are actions that you do, and those are verbs. Then we're going to write present, past, future above the verb to name its tense. What does tense mean? Well, tense means it's telling time, okay? It's telling the time an action happened, and that time could be present, past, or future. So present means it's happening right now. I talk to the students. That means I'm doing it right now. Past means it happened before, or we could say yesterday. Okay? Yesterday and beyond could have been last year, could have been 2 weeks ago, could have been last night. Future, we could say, will happen tomorrow. That's something that's happening in the future, later on, next month, next year, tomorrow. So we're looking at how actions can be happening in the past, present, or future. So we can draw a little timeline here. And that is a representation of when these different tenses can happen, okay? Now, when we want to show action, why is that important? Well, readers need to know if your story, if you're explaining something that already happened, or you're telling them something that's happening at this moment, or you're telling them something that happens all the time, like every day, that would still be the present because it's happening all the time. Or something that's going to happen later on, like you're telling them a story about the future, or a goal or a wish or a dream that you think is going to be happening in the future. So knowing tenses and how to change our verbs is super important when we're writing, so that our reader can know exactly when these actions are happening. So let's look here, okay? In our mini lesson, we're going to be reading parts of the story, and then we're going to talk about what we are finding. So here we're finding verbs. Last year, I went to day camp. We swam every day and learned a lot of new skills. We also studied wildlife. I now know all about spiders. Before last summer, those 8-legged creatures scared me. I'm going to stop right here. So we're looking for verbs, but then we need to know what tense they're happening in, right? So let's go sentence by sentence. Last year I went to day camp. What's the action that's happening there? Well, went, right? Now, in my sentence, sometimes I already have some clue words that are telling me when it's happening. What is the tense? Well, I see these clue words right here, last year. I also know that went is past tense, so I would put past here, okay? That is how you write go in the past, okay? Go turns into went. We swam every day and learned a lot of new skills. Well, here I see two verbs. Part of swim and part of learn. Those are actions. But I'm noticing that this was last year when they went to camp. Swam is in the past tense. So is learned. They have to agree. If it's talking about the past, it has to stay in the past in this sentence, right? Unless you give keywords that show you're changing it. But So swam is the past tense of what word do you think? Swim. Right? Today I swam, yesterday I swam. And you can use those key time words to kind of use it with that verb to see if it does match when it's happening, right? Now notice something important here. They ended this word with ed. Now all of these words are happening in the past, but sometimes we add ed and sometimes we cannot. For example, swim, we couldn't say yesterday I swimmed in the pool, right? We say swam, and this is the way we speak all the time. So you'll notice these things when you're reading them and when you're hearing these words. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit more. We also studied. That's my action. My key word here is ed, or my key ending, is ed. That's again telling me it's happening in the past. I now know all about spiders. The tense is changing. Did you notice that? And I have a key time word, now. When do you think now would be? Past, present, or future? It is present. Alright? So, let's recreate our timeline. This would be future. This would be present. It's happening now. And before that would be past. Okay? So past, present, future. We create a timeline to visually see, okay, this happened in the past, this happened in the present, that would happen in the future. This is our timeline, okay? Before last summer, those 8-legged creatures scared me. Okay? Before last summer, those 8-legged creatures scared me. What's the action word here? Well, they scared him. Okay? Look at our time words here, our context clues. And we have our special ending, ed. So when we're creating past tense verbs, mostly we add ed, right? Or if we have to change the spelling, like in swam or went, this would be the past tense of go. Then it would be called irregular, and we change spelling. Now there's no special rule for changing spelling. So these irregular verbs are just words that you have to start noticing and start remembering. But what's really awesome is, like I said, you use these words all the time. Like you use the word went, right? Yesterday I went to the store. Last time when I went with my friend, I had a lot of fun. You might use this if you've ever swam before, right? I went to, yesterday I swam in my friend's pool. So a lot of these verbs, you use them when you speak, and you'll notice how they are supposed to be said. Another tool you can use is the dictionary. Very important, because when you look up the word swim, it'll tell you the past tense. We learned that in school, remember? We found that secret out. So use the dictionary as well to help you, okay? Let's continue on. Let's read together. Ready? Now they amaze me. I see another keyword, and I see an action word. Do you see the action word? What is it? Amaze. Yes. So this was my keyword. Amaze is in the present. It doesn't have my special ending. It's not showing in the future. It's showing what's happening now. Now here we're going to get ready. Okay? Maybe someday I will become a spider expert. Okay. Look at this special word here. I need to tell you about this special word. So become is our action word. But there's a special word here. Okay? Look at this word. Maybe someday, look at those time words. When do you think that's happening? Someday. That would be in the future, right? This is a special word, will. Will tells me it's happening in the future. All right? So for future, you want to add will. Okay? So we have past and we have future. We have key things that we can notice or we need to add to our action verbs to show the new tense of past or future. Now in present, it's a regular verb. It stays the same. So we have our regular verb like go, right? Sometimes we have to add an S. For example, I can't say she go to the store every day. I would say she goes. So sometimes we have to add an S to the verb. Okay? So it could be regular like go, or we have to add an S and we could say goes, right? What's another example? Let's see. I could say I talk, but I need to say she talks. So these are both still present tense, okay? But sometimes we need to add that S ending, and we're going to talk about more about that actually on Thursday. That's going to be part of our lesson. But really important is that you know the endings of these different types of tenses. Past, we usually end in ED. If it's irregular, the spelling's going to change. In the present tense, it's our regular verb like talk, walk, go, run. Sometimes we have to add an S depending on who the subject is. And in future, we're always going to add this special word, will, because that shows it's going to happen in the future. I will run a lap tomorrow morning. I will finish my homework by 10 o'clock tonight. So you are giving these key parts or endings or addings to the verb to show the tense. That's how our verbs change when we're writing, depending on what we're trying to say. So let's continue on. Our counselors also taught us about poison ivy. What's the verb? It is taught. Now, if you're not sure about taught, you don't know it's past, let's think about what's happening here. Let's look at the context clues. Our counselors also taught us about poison ivy. Well, when were they with the counselors? Let's look back up. When did they go to camp? It was what? Last year. These are the context clues you're using. I know this is in the past. And actually, did it add ed? No, so it must be a regular verb. Here's the challenge. Do you know what the regular verb is? The present tense verb? It's teach. So I could say, today I teach you, yesterday I taught you about homophones, right? So that's how the verb changes to show the different time that it was happening. Let's continue. This plant causes an itchy rash when you touch it. What's the verb? What's the action happening? I would say causes, because it's causing, the plant is doing something, it's causing an itchy rash. Now, look at that ending that it has. What does it end with? S. That means what? Present. How else do we know it's present? Well, it says this plant causes an itchy rash. That means the plant always does that, right? It's happening in the present. It can do that today. So it is present tense. Really important that we're looking at the context clues, right? Next year, I will return to camp, but I will stay away from the poison ivy. Boom, boom, boom. We have some keywords here. Can you see them right away? I know you know this. I know you know. So my verbs are right here. Will return, will stay. We know it's the future because of will. plus it has next year. That's another key phrase. So look at all those key little words that tell us about time. Okay? And can we change time throughout a story? Yes, as long as you're doing it the right way. Like they're telling you something that happened last year, but they're still explaining what might happen in the future, and they're telling us things that could happen now, which is what a plant can do. That's always, because plants don't change. If they cause an itchy rash, they're always going to be poisonous, right? So time can change throughout your story, but it has to be done correctly, and it has to make sense with what you're trying to explain. All right? So as you go on working, okay, this part's going to be very simple for you. You're just going to choose the correct verb tense. So please, you're looking at the context clues. So let's talk about how you're going to be successful. Number one, we always read the sentence, right? All right? Then I want you to think about the context clues. Context clues that tell time. Do I have some words in there? Is my previous sentence telling me already what the time is? Because it's telling a story that happened in the past. So look around. Your context clues might not only be in the sentence, but they might be somewhere in the story. Okay? 3, you're going to change the regular verb. To match tense, right? Tense meaning time. What are the 3 times that we're trying to tell? You say it. I'll say it. Past, present, future. So future, again, really easy. You add will. Present tense stays regular, or sometimes you have to add an S, like in causes. And then past, you're adding that ed, or your spelling can change. Now I will be adding some anchor charts, okay, that you can use while you're working independent today. Really great anchor charts that can help you know how to make these changes, or remind you, or talk to you a little bit about some of these irregular verbs that change spelling, okay, like taught, swam, went. All right? So use these keywords every time, okay? You're looking to make sure that your verbs are matching the tense. Let's go on to the back. So that brings me to the back. You are using these words to fill in the blank, but let me tell you, if the tense needs to be changed, you need to make those changes to the verb. For example, Anil, blank, Asha on the phone last Saturday. Context clues right here. Last Saturday happened when? In the past. So a verb that makes sense here, if it's on the phone, okay, call, but can I say Anil call Asha on the phone last Saturday? No, because that's not telling me past tense. I could, though, add an ed to show that it's past. So in this story, you are using these verbs, but you might have to change them. You might have to add an ed. You might have to change the spelling if it's an irregular verb. You might have to add an s if it requires it. Or you might have to add will if it's something in the future. Now something that I want to tell you is, every time you have something in quotes, it's in the present tense. Okay? I'm going to tell you that little secret. Why is it always in the present tense? Because that's a quote that they were saying at that time. It was happening during that time, so it was during the present. So for example, here and here we have, I blank to your house at 9. So do you want to go for a bike ride tomorrow morning, Anil? Now here she's asking when in the past, because when did she call her? Last Saturday, right? So as we go on, you're reading through. Sure, Asha blank, I blank to your house at 9. So here though, they're going at 9. When is that going to happen? Could it be the present, or could it be the future? Think about it. It could be. But when you're in quotes, it's not going to be the past. So I will what? What word do you think can go from the box? Ride. I agree. Right? Because they're going on a bike ride. So, continuing on. Okay, said Anil, I blank you then. So she's going to see her when? In the future. How do we know? Because it's going to be in tomorrow morning. It's not happening yet, but they're on the phone right now. Okay, said Anil, I blank you then. So we're going to use will. And what word do you think makes sense here? See. I will see you then. Okay? So when you're talking about quotes, they're actually talking on the phone right now. That's happening in the present. She's telling her something that's going to happen in the future. Okay? So when we're talking about quotes, it's not going to be past tense. On Sunday morning, Asha blanked to Anil's bike and said, I blank your bike tires need air. So now it's Sunday morning and she's talking. So is that happening in the past? Can't. Is that happening in the present or future? Present. And blank your bike tires need air. What do you think she's telling her there? If you were with your friend, what would you say if you're trying to tell him your bike tires need air? I would. I think. So as you're going along, remember that what's in quotes, they are saying it at that time. So it could be present, it could be future, but it cannot be past. So make sure when you're going through, you're looking at what's inside the quotes. When is this story happening? We moved here from last Saturday when they were on the phone to now it's already Sunday morning, so it's the present. And you need to be making sure that you're changing those verbs to fit the story. It has to make a connection. Alright? So on your exit ticket for today, I'm going to have some sentences and I'm going to allow you to choose which tense of the verb should be. So make sure you're reading the story. Make sure you're noticing those clue words, those context clues, like next week, when would that be happening? In the future, right? So you're going to proofread the paragraph, cross out incorrect verb tenses. They have to be incorrect. So some of them, they may be correct, right? And you're not only going to do that, but you're going to write the correct one above it. So you're going to make the change to connect to the tense of the story. It has to make a connection. Now, what are the changes you could make? Well, we talked about those on the first page, right? And I will have those anchor charts up for you as well on Teams. So make sure you're using those when you're working. Alright, boys and girls. So today we learned about verb tenses. We learned about past, present, and future. We know that verbs need to change to fit the tense that they're in by adding endings, by adding words to it like will. And we need to make sure that our verbs are making a connection to the story and telling us exactly when the action was happening. Good luck today, boys and girls. Make sure to use your resources, use your context clues. They are super helpful. Make sure you're working hard to change these words, and good luck.